Hello, 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 and welcome, good people. Welcome. I'll allow you some time to get into the room. I will allow for you some time to get into the room because my name is Jeff Lightsey Jr. I am with the Black Boss channel, and I thank you guys for tuning in. Tonight, we have a special episode. We are talking about Malcolm X, one of the greatest leaders in the history of humankind, one of the greatest leaders in the history of the black race, one of the greatest leaders to ever take breath and step foot on this planet, Malcolm X. There's some news that came out about Malcolm today that I don't think has been talked about enough. I don't think enough people paid attention. Obviously, there was some other news that came out. Rest in peace to young Dolph. The news that came out about young Dolph, who was slain in Memphis. And I think that has overshadowed this news about Malcolm X. Now, for those of you who don't know the news, you can read the banner right there. Two men convicted of killing Malcolm X expected to be exonerated. So something that a lot of people from the Nation of Islam, something that a lot of people around the world, something that a lot of black people, intelligent black people knew is now coming to light. The two men that were accused and convicted of killing Malcolm X looks as if they are going to be exonerated. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. El Haj Malik El Shabazz. El Haj Malik El Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X. And it looks as if the two men who were convicted, two of the three men that were convicted for killing Malcolm X, will be exonerated this week. Put your hashtag B1s in the chat, hashtag B1s in the chat, because we are going to be discussing how all of this came about. How after over 50 years that the United States government, that the city of New York, that the New York Police Department, that the FBI, that all these people, after 50 years of locking up innocent black men, men that allegedly weren't even there the day that Malcolm was killed, are finally admitting that they were wrong and that they arrested the wrong people. And you know why they arrested the wrong people? Because they freaking did it. But we're going to get into that. We are going to get into that. So I want for you to buckle up your seatbelts, hit the thumbs up button, like, and put your hashtag, your B1s in the chat, because we are going to dive into the case. We're going to dive into the case. We're going to dive into the news articles that were released today. And once again, that was overshadowed, unfortunately, by the tragic passing of a young Dolph in Memphis. But this is still something, even if it's late night, like right now. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're on the East Coast, it's 10:30 at night right now. Thank you for tuning in late night. But we had, this was on my heart. This was on my spirit. I had to get this in before the night was over. So I'm going to share my screen right now and read to you from an NBC article that was published today about the two men who were wrongfully convicted and that are expected, well, one, RIP, and we'll read, has unfortunately passed away. But another man who has spent over 55 years behind bars for something that he didn't do. Think about that, 55 years behind bars for something, for a crime he did not commit. But let's get into it. This is from, like I said, an NBC News article. I'm sorting. The source is the NBC News, NBCnews.com. It says the conviction of two of the three men in the assassination of civil rights activist Malcolm X are expected to be thrown out on Thursday. The men, Muhammad A. Aziz and Khalil Islam, always maintained their innocence in the 1965 assassination of Malcolm X, who rose to become one of the most prominent leaders of the civil rights movement. It's funny because they recognized Malcolm as being one of the most prominent leaders of the civil rights movement, but when Malcolm died, obviously that same respect was not given to him. When Malcolm died, obviously they didn't look into who actually killed Malcolm. When Malcolm died, we know that the federal government was a part of that, but let's continue on. It says Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance and the lawyers representing the two men told the New York Times that they expected the men's names to be cleared on Thursday. Vance and the lawyers for the men confirmed to NBC News that they would, quote, move to vacate the wrongful convictions of two individuals for the murder of Malcolm X on Thursday afternoon. Islam died in 2009. So think about this. Mr. Islam died in 2009 for a murder that he did not commit in 1965. So from 1965, he never was a free man. From 1965 to the day that he died, he was imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. From 1965, he died knowing that he was an innocent man, but that the government continued to put him and let him rot behind bars until the day that he died. Think about that. I want you to really think about this, because this is why this is so important. Think about the people in your family. Some of you were born in 1965. Some of you were born after 1965. Some of you, were born before 1965. You were old enough to remember 1965. But think about if your mother or father or grandmother or grandfather or great-grandmother or great-grandfather life was put behind bars in 1965 and they never got to see free or smell or breathe free air ever again. They died behind bars for a crime they didn't commit. From 1965 until now, they were behind bars for a crime that they did not commit to one of the greatest leaders in the history of mankind. From 1965 up until 2021, these men's family members had to live with the fact that their dad, uncle, cousin, grandpa, whoever did not kill Malcolm. But everyone, if you look in any history book, any Google facts, any whatever, when you look up the killers of Malcolm X or the people that were convicted of killing Malcolm X, your grandpa, uncle, cousin, whoever, name was always attached and associated with that from 1965 until 2021. Think about how devastating that is. And your grandpa, uncle, cousin, brother, whoever died behind bars knowing he was an innocent man. You knew he was an innocent man. But it wasn't revealed until 12 years after his death. 12 years after his death, he was finally exonerated. That is beyond criminal. That is what we call white supremacy. Because this entire time, these people knew who killed Malcolm. This entire time. You know why they knew who killed him? Because they were fucking behind it. I'm sorry for cursing like that, but this pisses me off. Because I can't imagine what my family would be like if my grandfather, your grandfather, my uncle, or whoever was in prison from 1965 until now. How many generations were missed? How many families were disrupted and uprooted? How many families were never created? Think about it. If your grandfather was arrested in 1965 and never got to see the light of day in 2021, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Look how young these dudes were. These were pictures of these men in 1965. Look how young these guys were. Muhammad A. Aziz, known as at the time Norman 3X Butler, Khalil Islam, then known as Thomas 15X Johnson in 1965. Look how young these dudes are. Look how young these men are, these young black men who were minding their business, weren't even at the place, weren't even at the Audubon ballroom the day Malcolm was slain. And somehow, some way, they get convicted for the murder. I mean, come on now. If you're telling me we're not fighting, oh my God, we have to continue reading. I'll be here all night if we don't. Let's continue. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, because this is a message that needs to get out. This is the story that needs to get out. People need to know this. Islam died in 2009, so 12 years after the fact that he died in prison, his name is finally being cleared. Aziz, who is in his 80s, continued to fight to clear his record. He and Islam's estate are represented by the Innocence Project and Zanny's Law Office, a New York-based civil rights law firm. Quote, "The events that brought us here should never have occurred. Those events were and are the results of a process that are corrupt to its core, and one that is all too familiar, even in 2021. Aziz said Wednesday in a statement released by his lawyers. Quote, "While I do not need a court, prosecutors, or a piece of paper to tell me I am innocent, I am glad that my family, my friends, and the attorneys who have worked and supported me all these years are finally seeing the truth we have all known, officially recognized, he continued. The development follows a 22-month investigation and decades of speculation that the case was mishandled from the start. Malcolm X was assassinated February 21st, 1965 at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City, where hundreds had gathered to hear him speak. Inside the ballroom, several men opened fire, striking him on stage. 3 members of the political and religious group of the Nation of Islam were arrested. Majaj Abdul Halim, then known as Talmadge Hayer, and Thomas Hagen. Aziz, then known as Norman 3X Butler, and Islam, then known as Thomas 15X Johnson. They were convicted and sentenced to life in 1966. Halim admitted to playing a role in the assassination, but maintained that Aziz and Islam had not taken part in it, according to the Innocence Project. Now listen to why these men's names are finally being cleared. Listen to this. A Netflix documentary series last year titled, quote, Who Killed Malcolm X, raised enough questions about the case that Vance announced that he would review the men's convictions. Now listen to this, guys. Listen to how sick this is. Listen to how sick this is. These men were sentenced to life in 1960. These men were sentenced to life in 1966. It took into a Netflix documentary that came out in 2019 for New York City, the state of New York, the FBI, all the federal investigations, the bureaus, and all this stuff. It took until a Netflix documentary that came out in 2019 for them to say, maybe we didn't handle this right. Maybe these guys didn't kill Malcolm. A damn documentary put out by Netflix after quote unquote decades of speculation. You want to know why really these men were convicted and put in jail for years and decades upon decades? It's because the U.S. government wanted to take down the Nation of Islam. That's no secret. That's no secret. I'm not breaking news here. But the U.S. government, J. Edgar Hoover, COINTELPRO, and all of these dudes that work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, better known as the FBI, wanted to take down the Nation of Islam, along with other groups, including the Black Panther Party, along with other groups, including Martin Luther King and everything in his organization, including other groups and other members and other people. And so what better way to try and take down the Nation of Islam is to blame them for the death of Malcolm, to blame them for the death of Malcolm X. What better way to dismantle a group than from the inside? Now, obviously, we know the story of Malcolm. He defected from the nation. He had some words for Elijah Muhammad, and it is what it is. And they saw that, and they used that to capitalize, and they used that to get on top of that. They used that to get in and to infiltrate the nation and to try to break the nation up from the inside. Because they knew members of the nation, whether silently or out loud, would be heated the fact that Malcolm was killed. Let's be honest. So they used this tactic. They used this split because everybody knows one way to conquer a nation, to conquer an organization, is to divide and conquer. And they saw the division that Malcolm had with Elijah Muhammad, that Malcolm had with all of those other members, including Muhammad Ali and Louis Farrakhan and all these things. And they attacked. They capitalized. Boom. First, it was the bombing of Malcolm's house. And then a week or so later, it was the killing of Malcolm X. So these people knew this the entire time. And they're saying that a Netflix freaking documentary is what sparked their interest to reopen this case. 55 years after the fact. Over 50 years after the fact. Come on, guys. Come on. I mean, let me know in the chat that you understand what I am saying. Let me know in the chat that you understand what I am saying and that this is making sense. They saw a chance to try to infiltrate and break up the Nation of Islam, to weaken the Nation of Islam because they were creating too many strong, powerful black men. They did the same thing with the Black Panther Party. They were creating too many strong, powerful, organized black men. Strong, powerful, organized black men. And they couldn't have that happen because too much galvanizing of that is the biggest threat to white supremacy. Let's continue reading. Among the issues raised in the series, Aziz had an alibi. He had injured his leg and gone to the hospital only hours before the assassination. A doctor who treated him had taken the stand in his defense. So think about this. Aziz wasn't there. He was at the freaking hospital. He had a leg injury. He couldn't even walk barely. A doctor who treated him the day that Malcolm was killed, testified that the man had a bad leg injury and was not there at the time of the assassination. And somehow he still gets convicted and sentenced to life. If that ain't white supremacy, I don't know what is. If that ain't white supremacy, I don't know what is. Let's continue reading. Quote, the day of the murder, which was a Sunday, I was laying over the couch with my foot up and heard over the radio, Aziz recalled, quote, who killed Malcolm X? Halim eventually revealed his co-conspirators in the assassination. In 1978, he identified 4 other men he said were involved, but a judge at the time rejected a motion to vacate Aziz and Islam's convictions, the Innocence Project says. Quote, I am an 83-year-old man who was victimized by the criminal justice system, and I do not know how many more years I have to be a creative, Aziz said in a statement. However, I hope the same system that was responsible for this travesty of justice also takes the responsibility for the immeasurable harm it caused me and his family and the family of Malcolm. Malcolm still has daughters that are alive. Malcolm still has family members that are alive and well. Malcolm still has friends, family that remember him, that love him, and that knew that this was a farce from the beginning, knew that these men were innocent, knew that who really killed Malcolm. They knew who really killed Malcolm. They knew it. They knew it. Everybody knew it. And I've heard members of the Nation of Islam, including Wesley Muhammad, Nuri Muhammad, and others, have always maintained that the Nation of Islam had nothing to do with the death of Malcolm. That the nation had nothing to do with the death of Malcolm. And I've always believed them. I have always believed them 100% of the fact, 100% of the time. Why? Because I knew what was taking place in America then, and I know what's taking place in America now. Anytime you build an institution like the Black Panther Party, like the Nation of Islam, whether you have defectors or not, because Malcolm was a defector, we can't ignore that. That institution, especially during the civil rights movement, had to be taken down. The only black people that white supremacist organizations, whether it's the media or the government or the FBI or whoever, rise to the top are the ones that they handpick. Members of the Nation of Islam were not members that they handpicked. They didn't pick Elijah Muhammad. That's why you never hear about Elijah Muhammad and the great things that he did, the do for self teachings that he taught. Why these leaders were able to rise and grow and be so great and be put on a pedestal the way that they are. They didn't handpick Louis Farrakhan. Why do you think they're so quick to call him anti-Semitic? And anytime anybody takes a picture, posts a quote, shows love, does anything, they try to tear him down. It's not by accident. That is not by accident. Think about it. Anytime that a person who is of some kind of notoriety and fame in the white media, the mainstream media, posts a picture, puts up a quote, shows love, a tweet or whatever about Louis Farrakhan, they come after him. They come after him every single time. The latest example that I remember is Damon John. So Minister Louis Farrakhan A message from Minister Louis Farrakhan was played during the funeral of DMX. And after the funeral, or during the funeral, I guess during when the message was being played, Damon John, who's the creator of FUBU, who's on Shark Tank, he's got a lot of money, he's really well known, and he's on NBC, ironically, with Shark Tank, tweeted, "Oh my God, like Farrakhan just lit the stage on fire. Oh my God, he just lit the stage on fire with that message. Hallelujah, praise Allah." And people were quick. "Oh my God, you're supporting an anti-Semitic. Oh my God, you love Louis Farrakhan, blah, blah, blah." This man deleted the tweet. They bullied him, they cyber bullied him enough to where he deleted the tweet. And you know what probably happened? Somebody from NBC got on the phone. Somebody from Shark Tank was like, "Yo, if you don't delete this tweet, buddy, you can cancel Christmas." And that's why the tweet was removed. The ones that are not handpicked, they're going to tell you that these are bad people. Malcolm was not handpicked. Elijah Muhammad was not handpicked. And so for years, members of the Nation of Islam have had to defend their leaders, have had to defend their people and say, "Yo, we didn't have nothing to do with this." How in the hell was there police on the roof? There was a police presence inside the building. Think about this. There were police outside the building, on the roof, and inside the building at the Audubon Ballroom that day that Malcolm gave the speech that Malcolm was killed. And you guys get the wrong people? You guys didn't catch the guys that did it? That is a police thing. That has nothing to do with us. That is a police malfunction. And let's be honest, it wasn't a malfunction. It was a police setup. The same way they set up MLK. Come on now. Come on, y'all. Let me know that you understand what I'm saying. The same way they set up MLK, that was a police setup, not a police malfunction. It was a police setup, and they swung the narrative towards the nation. And after 55 years, these men will finally be exonerated. These men will no longer be known as the killers of Malcolm X. 55 years, that's a generation. 55 years. They've had to live with that uncomfortable lie, that lie on their name and on their family's names. 55 years after the fact. I don't know what else to say. But this is why Black-owned media is important. This is why we must continue to put pressure on these court systems, on these law enforcement officers, on these judges, on all these white supremacists. We must continue to put pressure on them. Because the thing that they didn't have in 1965 and 66 during the civil rights movement that we have now is this thing that we're communicating on right now called the internet. With the internet, we're allowed to spread these messages. With the internet, we're allowed to tell you the truth, the real truth. Not this fake truth, not this truth that white people, think about this. CIA, thank you someone in the chat, CIA, FBI, all these people, J. Edgar Hoover, the Lyndon B. Johnson, all these dudes who are, are praised and have buildings named after them and streets named after them and all that stupid stuff, even though they purposely worked their damnedest to kill all your leaders. Think about this, they tried to kill all of your leaders, or they ran them out the country. Kwame Ture, aka known as Stokely Carmichael, ran out the country. Edward Cleaver ran out the country. Malcolm dead. Martin dead. Fred Hampton dead. Medgar Evers dead. They either killed them or ran them out the country. So that's why we are important. That's why communication, videos like this, and the people like you are important to continue to spread the truth. Not this whitewashed fake truth, the real truth. So after 55 years, these men have finally been exonerated. And somebody's going to have to write them a check. Period. Somebody is going to have to write them a check. Think about this, guys. Malcolm and Martin were enemies number 1 and 2 in the entire country. They wiretapped their phones. They listened in on their conversations for years. Listened in on their conversations for years. Listened in on their conversations for years. Were plotting to kill these men for years because their power, their magnitude, their impact was too great. Their power, their impact, their magnitude was too great. Whew. I'm just glad these men are finally exonerated and will no longer be known as the men who killed Malcolm X, because it simply isn't true. Thank you all for listening. My name is Jeff Lighty Jr. with the Black Boss Channel. Hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe on your way out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.